In today's market, there are simply some sellers who are out to lunch. The reality of the matter has not settled yet. As you guys know from this channel, we're dealing with a very buyer-friendly market, a down market, really low prices, really buyer-friendly conditions. In some cases, prices going back all the way down to 2018 levels, 2019 levels. In other cases, one-off sales here and there, 2017. Of course, you have the exceptions in good buildings, good areas, good units, still selling at what they would have sold at in 2023, but that's the exception, not the rule. So when I'm going through things with my buyers or for my buyers, I am seeing a lot of significantly overpriced listing. And not only is that reflected when you simply take a look at comparables, or even if you know the market, you don't have to look at comparables, you just know what things are going for at a general level, but it's also reflected on the days on market, or how many times they've come and gone and come and gone on market. So what am I exactly talking about? Let's take a look at a couple of examples. These Toronto condo units for sale are significantly overpriced. I'm going to break down why. All right, to start, for example, we have a unit here, 15th Merchants Wharf unit 1236. It's a building I love, right? I've talked about this building many times. I talked about it in my best waterfront buildings video. Go check it out. It's a Tridel building. Really like it. Really high end, really quality, really good units, managed well as well. Nonetheless, for example, this unit in 15 Merchants Wharf, which is just a 1+1 with one washroom, which is about 652 square feet with a parking and a locker. These guys are asking for $789,000. That is a ridiculous asking price. 237 days on market at the time of recording of this video. When you're watching it, who knows? It might have sold, it might be 300 days, you never know. But at the time of this video, 237 on market, and it's agreed at 652 square feet, $789,000. That comes to $1,210 per square foot. And guess what? The price per square foot analysis sometimes leads you astray, because in a really premium building with a good layout, good location, of course, a 700 square feet unit is probably going to sell for more than a 700 square feet unit in a decent to poor building, or decent to poor units, or decent to poor layouts, right? Or decent to poor area. So the price per square foot analysis is not the be all end all, but purely from a price per square foot analysis, it's very hard to justify $1,200 a square foot in a 1+1 unit in today's market, even in a fantastic building such as 15 Merchants Wharf. I mean, for instance, in that building right now, there is a 2-bedroom for sale at $799, which in of itself is slightly overpriced, but still much more reasonable. That's 2 bedrooms, 2 washrooms. And knowing the building quite well, I don't even need to look it up. 1+1s in this building have been selling at best, and larger than this, by the way. This is not the biggest 1+1 type in 15 Merchants Wharf, but larger 1+1s have been selling at best case scenario, high 600s, low 700s. So no one's gonna come grab this at this egregious price. Here we have yet another example, 8 Charlotte unit 3007, another 1+1, 1 washroom, listed at $845,000. Now 8 Charlotte, much like 15 Merchants Wharf, is a really good building. It's a different profile of a building. The lifestyle of someone living in 8 Charlotte is naturally going to be different. The demographics are different, but overall, all in all, it's a pretty good building. As a matter of fact, it's a good building. It's not pretty good, it's a good building. They've recently had some flooding issues, believe it or not. I mean, as of recent of like a month ago, some of the elevators are out. I believe they've had some flooding issues in the 5th or 4th floor. At least that's what the residents have told me. I've been visiting this building quite a bit, so I've seen it firsthand as well. Not the actual flooding, but like, you know, asking people, talking to people, contacts on the ground. So, but anyways, it's all in all a pretty good building besides the flooding issue. But at 749 square feet, asking for $845,000 is definitely a overpriced asking price. And in this case, once again, this is a listing that I can confidently say, even without having to look at the comps, which we will do, but having to look at the comps, that it's overpriced. But let's look at a comp. We have this one, for example, 8 Charlotte unit 905, yet another 1+1, 2 washrooms. and 1 parking. So this unit has 1 parking more than the subject property that we're considering as significantly overpriced, and it has an additional washroom, and it's about 4 or 5 square feet larger. And this one sold for how much? $733,000. This is, I would probably have to say, even more egregiously overpriced when we take a look at the comparable that just sold with 1 more washroom, a parking spot, and it sold for $110,000, almost less than our subject property here, right? Which is listed for $845. But some sellers just frankly do not learn, just like some buyers don't learn. And that's the point I want to actually emphasize before we continue, which is this is not an anti-seller video. It's not an anti-buyer video. I don't make any anti-this, anti-that, bear, bull. I'm just calling it as it is. In this line of work, you come across a lot of unreasonable buyers. You come across a lot of unreasonable sellers, unreasonable agents, unreasonable lawyers, unreasonable concierges. So it's not like, there's a lot of listings out there that are not even priced greatly. They're still overpriced, but it's not egregiously overpriced, right? Like, even as a listing strategy, when I work with sellers in today's market, I tailor my service to my seller clients. If they are not in a rush and they don't need to sell, then of course I'm going to price it a little bit higher than what I'm willing to, negotiate down from. So this is not to say you have to list your property at what the most recent unit that was comparable sold. You do the adjustments, you add a little bit or quite a bit on top to leave room for negotiating or maximizing returns. But you have to be in the realm of reason. But you have to be within the realm of reason. Let's take a look at another one. For example, this one in 45 Charles, right? Unit 3212, listed for $948,000. It is 797 square feet. I don't even need to break down the price per square foot. For 45 Charles, that's egregious. Case in point, you have the most recent sold example of a 2-bedroom in 45 Charles, right? This is the most recent 2-bedroom sale in this building, and it is smaller. These O2 ones are closer to the lower 700s. The subject one we're calling overpriced is closer to 800, so this is smaller, right? I'm very fair. Nonetheless, it sold for $800,000. Still 2 bedrooms, 2 washroom on a higher floor. It is smaller by 90 square feet, but it doesn't justify a $148,000 asking price in excess, but it doesn't justify a excess of $148,000 in more of an asking price relative to the most sold comparable. This sold for $800,000. Our subject property, which is, once again, albeit bigger by 90 square feet, is asking for $948,000. But once again, 90 square feet does not justify $148,000. Provided that there's also other adjustments to be made as well, and the ways the sold comparable is superior. And then you have another one, for example, such as this one, 88 Blue Jays Way, which, by the way, you should know my opinion on the Blue Jays Way condos. If you do not know my opinion on the Blue Jays Way condos, you can check one of my shorts. Basically, as a general rule of thumb, nothing too concrete, any address that starts with Blue Jays Way or has Blue Jays Way in it is probably not a good building. 88 Blue Jays Way is actually one of your better ones. The other ones are complete, in some cases garbage, in some cases just not good, in other cases just not my cup of tea. Nonetheless, though, you have this one asking for 1.1, almost 1.2 actually, 1.198 to be exact, and 900 square feet. It is supposed to be a luxury building. It falls a little bit short of that in my experience, right? My experience differs, by the way. My opinions and tastes are different. Other realtors might call this a luxury building. To them, it might be luxury. And I'm not even saying I'm all that pretentious or used to these high-end tastes. It just, to me, it's a little bit budget luxury. But anyways, it's like a Lexus, nothing wrong with a Lexus. But my point is, it's overpriced. Simply, that's just overpriced. You can't justify 1.198 in 88 Blue Jays Way for a 2-bedroom, 2 washroom. Let's take a look at the unit, and the unit has some interesting finishes. It's definitely floor to ceiling, corner unit, really good unit. This is not a bad unit. I don't want people in the comments saying shoebox in the sky. This is a proper unit. Get out of your mom's basement. This is a good unit, but it's not 1.198 good. That's the key thing. It's all about nuance.